Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Also, fantasy sports, if you're into football, baseball, basketball, and you're looking for a discount at fanduel.com, the promo code is Dwyer777. Let's talk about this Ricky Burns-Kiryl Relikh fight. Let me just say this. First, kudos to Ricky Burns. He fought an excellent fight. We'll talk about what he did right as this video goes forward. But let me make a couple of points, and I believe they're foundational. First, the scoring in this fight's an absolute joke. It's such a joke that the judges really should be held up to scrutiny by the public, right? Kiryl Relikh starts the fight strongly. He then, in the later rounds, makes a bit of a comeback. Now, what I want someone to do, and we have the video of the fight up on YouTube, right? I believe I've placed it in my favorites folder here online, right? A link to the fight. What I want someone to do here in the comment section to this video, because it's worth a look, it's worth a discussion, is to explain to me why Ricky Burns hitting the canvas in the 12th round was not considered a knockdown. Right? Understand, Ricky Burns gets hit hard twice in the exchange. It's clear he's put off balance by punches. So Burns is trying to right himself after getting dazed. In my opinion, and I want you to look at the film yourself and come up with your opinion. But in my opinion, Relikh then throws a left hook, which is what he's supposed to do. This is a fight. You throw punches in a championship fight, right? Relikh wants the title. He's running out of time. He throws a left hook on a guy who's dazed. Make no mistake, Burns is dazed. Now, Burns is trying to lean back. He bumps into the left hook, which misses his head, and then falls face first on the canvas. Now, I'm sorry, but if punches have something to do with you falling on the canvas, if you're off balance because you've been hit with a couple of quality shots, that's a knockdown, right? Just like it's a knockdown if you get hit, back up a couple of steps, feel the effects of the punch, and then hit the canvas, that's a knockdown too, right? The point is, Ricky Burns is feeling the effects of legitimate punches, right? Legitimate punches. He's unable to get his balance back right after being hit. Look at the replay. He hits the canvas. Now, I'm not saying he should have lost the fight. I had Burns winning a narrow victory. But what I am saying is, if that 12th round is a 10-8 round, there simply is no way that you get the scorecards you get. Even without it being a 10-8 round, you mean to tell me the closest judge had Burns winning 8 of the 12 rounds? What fight were they watching? You know, we, the boxing public, you know, even with feel-good stories like this, even with fights like this, where the champ looked great at times, we have to throw a red flag on bad officiating. And the judge who had it the widest, I hope the sanctioning body looks at his credentials, right? That guy should be off title fights for at least a couple of fights, right? We can't have these judges diminish good performances by turning in scorecards that aren't credible. Now, for me, the theme of this fight is that you really need a back foot game. You need to be able to operate on your back foot. Or you need the ability to hit a guy from distance with power shots. You need ring coverage, right? In order to be effective, in my opinion, at a world-class level, right? We'll throw in a third. If you're savvy and you can get deep in the pocket and throw uppercuts like Chris Eubank, okay, I'll concede that you're viable. But here it's clear that only one of these two fighters had a back foot game, and that was Ricky Burns. And as Ricky Burns backed up, I thought it was clear that Kiryl Relikh didn't have the ring coverage to catch him, right? He would see Ricky Burns backing up, and he would then try to move forward, right? But he couldn't move forward fast enough to cut off the ring. I thought Burns won a lot of exchanges because he would throw punches. Burns has lateral movement. Then Burns would back away, and Burns, who's mobile, can take his defense with him, right? That's part of a back foot game. Burns was able to fight backing up. He was able to defend himself backing up. At times he was able to pivot. He was throwing a chopping right hand that seemed to be the punch he thought would get the most bang for the buck. So at times he would pivot. He would have Relikh searching for him, and then he would throw this chopping right hand. Had it landed flush, Relikh would have been in trouble, right? In addition, I thought Burns did a good job while backing up of occasionally planting his feet, throwing very good shots to the body. Also, Ricky Burns, right? Although he didn't show too much of it in this fight, Burns is a very good jabber when he wants to be. So as you're on your front foot trying to catch up with Burns, you have to be aware of the fact that Burns can pivot, throw that quick chopping right hand, or Burns will hit you with the jab and keep you outside while he's piling up points. So I thought Burns did that masterfully, right? I thought Relikh was out of his depth. In other words, if the fight's not in the pocket, where Relikh's able to load up on punches, be flat-footed, and hurt you, right? Relikh doesn't know what to do. In my opinion, he didn't have the skills to have a plan B, right? He couldn't be in the pocket and think, okay, I'm going to wait for Burns to then try to back out of the pocket, then I'm going to hit him with a Sunday punch as he backs out, right? Because he didn't have the ring coverage. Burns was too fluid and was too able to, play the angles well enough where he'd be backing away and Relikh wasn't in a position to throw punches. Relikh had some success countering Burns when Burns was in the pocket, but Burns wisely didn't stay in the pocket. So you had an immobile fighter, right, against a mobile fighter with defense, a jab, and just more savvy, right? The ability to set up that chopping right hand. Also, Relikh couldn't take a step back, decide to lure Burns into the pocket, force Burns into the pocket by not throwing punches and being defensive himself. Because Relikh doesn't have a back foot game and doesn't have that level of defense. Right? One of the problems with boxing is that these guys are young. Right? They're young. And they've always been hunters. So they have no idea what it's like to need defense. Right? It's a rare fighter. A guy can learn offense as his career goes along. But let me tell you, you either early on learn defensive skills, right? Learn defensive instincts, or you never do. Right? When I look at a fighter like James Kirkland, for example, the middleweight, who, let's face it, is not defensively blessed, right? He's getting hit with a bunch of hard shots, right? When I see a guy like that, I know he's never going to develop great defensive skills because he's too old. Right? You've got to learn defense when you're a teenager. You've got to come up being the kind of guy in the ring who is always aware of the other guy's right hand and who knows how to stay away from it. Right? Ricky Burns is trying to throw that chopping right hand the entire fight, folks. Understand, Relikh, a defensive fighter would have done certain things to make him pay, right? Smother the right hand, knock it down, counter it. Kiryl Relikh just doesn't have the defensive awareness. He's wide open at times. He just doesn't have the defensive awareness to do that. Right? So, I thought it was a masterful fight by Burns. Let me just say, though, I thought Relikh won at least 5 of the rounds. Right? I thought it was a close fight. I don't think, I'm old school, I think you have to take the champ's title to be the champ. I don't think Relikh did enough to take Ricky Burns' title. I think Ricky Burns dominated the middle of the fight, right? If they didn't call the knockdown in the 12th round, even the 12th round is debatable on who won the round, right? But I think we all know that if this fight wasn't in Ricky Burns' backyard, if this fight was in Kiryl Relikh's backyard, the scoring would have been, same fight, scoring would have been very different. Right? The knockdown in the 12th round might have even tipped the scales in Relikh's favor in front of friendly judges. Right? As for what the future holds for these guys, I like the fact that Ricky Burns wants to fight Adrian Broner. Burns is certainly more mobile than Broner. Right? The problem, though, and it's a big problem, is understand here Burns was fighting a guy who was green. Right? A guy who wasn't defensively blessed. For all of Broner's problems, Broner is defensively blessed. Right? Broner is qualitatively a much better fighter than Kiryl Relikh. Right? I'll make a video on that fight. I want to look at some films of Broner and Burns before having an opinion on Burns versus Broner. As for Relikh, let me say this. I know he has the celebrity corner. Right? That was Ricky Hatton in his corner. That's understood. No doubt a lot of people know him. The guy's exciting to watch. Don't confuse exciting, though, with effective. He's always going to have a problem with movers, isn't he? Right? He's always going to have a problem with movers. Also, I thought the guy is really way too flat-footed. And I mean way too flat-footed. Right? He needs to get up on the balls of his feet. Also, let's face it too. The guy needs to study how to cut off the ring. Right? Because Ricky Burns always had an escape route. There's never a time in this fight where you felt that Ricky Burns was all dressed up with nowhere to go. Right? Ricky always has an escape route. Kiryl Relikh needs to realize that, look, I can't hit a guy from long range. Either I need to develop those skills, or I need to find a way then to run across the ring like Golovkin does. Right? Run across the ring when I have to catch up with the guy without throwing punches. Right? This idea of sauntering over to the guy you're fighting and giving him an opportunity to then back away and, go back to the middle of the ring, that doesn't work. After the first 2 rounds, this fight was on the table for Relikh. He wasn't able to close the show. He wasn't able to catch up with Ricky Burns. Right? He didn't have a plan for when Burns left the pocket. And let's face it too, fighting backing up. Again, I don't want to sound too hard here, but if you're in your 20s and you don't intuitively have a sense of the entire ring, right? You view fighting as being in a phone booth. You land, the other guy lands. If you don't have the sense of distance and spacing and backing up, if you feel backing up is cowardly, right, you're not going to learn that skill. In other words, Relikh really is going to have to work on a lot of his game, I believe, while he's a promising puncher. Right? I don't see him getting to the next level unless he develops some other skills. Right? Let me just say, the Relikh I saw yesterday gets stopped by Victor Postal, gets stopped by Terence Crawford. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Let's talk about the 12th round in particular. Tell me why that's not a knockdown. What am I missing? Did Relikh step on Burns' foot? Did the referee say something? Did Relikh throw an illegal punch? Right? Didn't Burns get hit flush by 2 shots in that exchange and then suddenly get wobbly on his way to the canvas? How can we claim that Relikh pushed him to the canvas when Relikh just throws a left hook? Right? Relikh doesn't do a Joseph Parker. He doesn't come up and push him down. No, he's following through. He's throwing punches. The other guy's woozy. He throws a left hook. Right? The other guy gets inside of the left hook. The punch is here. Burns can't straighten up. He falls to the canvas. On my side of the street, that's a knockdown. Right? Just understand how wide the scoring was. Even if they scored that a knockdown, the closest judge would have had Relikh still losing by 3 rounds. That's how absurd the scoring was. Also, tell me your thoughts on the scoring. Right? Did that scoring reflect your scorecard? Didn't you think Relikh started strong and looked good in the 9th, 10th, 11th rounds? I mean, let's do the math. If Relikh looks good in the first 2 rounds, then looks good in the 9th, 10th, and 11th rounds. Wow, isn't that 5 rounds? Isn't that 5 rounds? In fact, the last round. How did you score the last round? Let's face it. Ricky Burns hits the canvas. Relikh doesn't hit the canvas in the last round. Right? So is there anyone here watching this video who thinks that Ricky Burns won this fight by 4 rounds? If you exist, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section to this video. Let me know what your scorecard said. I think Burns defended his title. I just think it was close. Understand too, it matters. Margin of victory matters, because if there's an outcry, Relikh might get a rematch. If there's an outcry, Relikh might get a shot with another champion in the division. Right? If there's an outcry, Relikh might get box office benefits, might actually have some leverage in future negotiations for future championship fights. But if he's viewed as losing this fight by 4 rounds, right, he's not going to get the same level of consideration. Let's give the young guy what he's earned. Right? I believe he earned closer scoring than this. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.